everyone, and welcome back to the Colour Cave, where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem, and it's time for a little nosy into Upcrate number 57. So this is the May Upcrate. This is the monthly art subscription box that hails from Germany. So let's take a look at the surprise supplies, see what we have and what we have for inspiration also. Ooh. Christy van der Weck, some stickers here. These are psychedelic patterns. Not really a fan of patterns. I like the stickers, but I don't like drawing patterns. That's what I meant. So that looks pretty colourful and fun. Makes me think we're going to have markers. Significantly square and marker shaped in there. Oh boy. Okay, let's see what we've got under here. Yep, so the featured artist, which we said is Christy. This is some of her artwork here. And yeah, markers. This gives us access to our magazine and whatnot, which we will look at in a little minute. So Christy is the artist of the month. And she got bored of drawing faces. Well, I can definitely relate to that one. So let's look at the paper we've got then. We have a pad of paper. It is Ecoline. Oh, it isn't Ecoline paper. It says suitable for Ecoline products. Interesting. A5. 290 GSM, so fairly thick. It doesn't say anything other than paper pad. It has a slight texture to it. It's this nice white colour and satisfying noise. That is what we have to work with. 10 sheets, that's quite a lot of paper. I like it when we get this. Compared to Scrawlrbox, the sort of UK equivalent, they tend to be a bit stingier with paper, do our Upcrate friends. So I'm really glad to see this in here. So let's see what else is lurking about. A very pretty paper this time, very delicate. I've got some Ecoline dual tip markers, and this is the primary colours, so I'm assuming we're going to have the old yellow, pink, blue, or cyan, magenta, and oh, come on, out. Come on. Okay. Yes. Now, what do we know about this? Concentrated transparent watercolour paint. The brilliant colours in combination with the two different nibs give you the freedom to make broad lines, fine or broad lines, and colour larger areas. The dye-based duo tips work perfectly in combination with the Ecoline brush pens and Ecoline bottles. Oh, so let's take a look at the nibs. Round barrel tells you where the fat end and the skinny end is. So we've got cyan, primary yellow, oh no, sorry, lemon yellow primary, and what they call in this one? Magenta. This means we're going to be doing layering or mixing on a palette, which you all know is my favourite thing to do. So the fine tip is still quite big. That's quite a nice size. I like that kind of bullet shape. And then we've got this sort of chisel tip at the other end, which isn't too chunky either. So I actually quite like the ratio of nib to paper, and I do talk about that quite a lot. Sometimes we seem to get quite disproportionate size supplies for the size of the paper that we're provided with. So this is quite nice. So we'll be able to dilute these down, blah, blah, blah. I've been through all this before. Forgive me for not being particularly excited about these. Markers just aren't my thing. And when they start talking about mixing and blending colours and, you know, mixing them together in a palette, if I wanted to do that, and I'm getting a palette out anyway, I would use paint because it's so much easier. However, we shall not be beaten. We've also got in this little box, we have a water brush here. It's quite a sort of standard squishy bit with a lovely long point on it, right enough. That's a fairly big barrel for water as well, so we can give that a wee bash and see how we get on. And we've also got one of these permapaque markers. I got one of these in the big Christmas box that Upcrate sent me. I wasn't that excited about it. I was kind of hoping it would get more opaque, you know, as it kind of got going, to make sure it was mixed and everything. And it was a bit sort of underwhelming, shall we say. This is a Sakura pen. This is, I thought it was white because this end was white. It's black. A 1mm line width, so that's that should be nice. It'll be interesting to see how opaque it really is, because the white one really wasn't. So very interesting. Quite a simple set of supplies here, but lots of room for variety, manoeuvrability, based on the fact that we can mix these colours. So let's take a wee look at our magazine, and then we'll have a go swatching these out. So I've got to get my QR code out here. Do this. My phone is absolutely filthy, dear goodness. I've been outside with my cows. So lovely pictures of these markers here. I really like the rug or the towel that's in the background there. That's kind of funky. So the duo tip marker set. Primary colours is a great basic set to start your collection with. Easily expand your colour palette by adding the secondary colour set and create a full spectrum of colours with just 6 pens. They contain concentrated transparent watercolour paint. These brilliant watercolours in combination with the 2 different nibs, a slim bullet and a broad or chisel tip, give you the freedom to make fine or broad lines to colour larger areas. Dye-based duo tips work perfectly. We've already read this on the back of the box. Brilliant colours based on dye and gum arabic. Blend colours with water and a brush for beautiful watercolour effects and seamless colour transitions. Apply to wet paper for wet on wet techniques. Adheres well to watercolour paper, drawing paper and cardboard. Store horizontally so the dye stays evenly distributed throughout the pen. Bring dried out nibs back to life by moistening them with some water. Store your artworks in a portfolio for optimal colour retention. Yeah, because these are dye based, they're not going to be light fast. So you're kind of in that marker predicament. Recommended retail price is €14, which is quite reasonable. Permapaque, fine universal permanent marker with a water-based pigment, opaque marker with a fine tip of 1mm that requires no shaking or pumping. Thanks to the special ink, Permapaque guarantees a permanent opaque finish. Ideal for use on coated paper, wood, metal, plastic tubes, aluminium, glass, odourless and non-toxic. Working temperature 5 to 40 degrees. Well, that means it'll even work in Scotland when it's cold. Recommended retail price is €5. Okay, so the brush is the Art Space water brush. Fill it with water, close it. It tells you to go clockwise and counterclockwise. Now, this is, but yeah, it does screw and unscrew the opposite. Yeah, okay. It tells you which way to screw it and unscrew it. Synthetic hairs are soft, spongy to hold a lot of water. €3. And here we go with the pad. The vibrant colours of Ecoline shine brightest when paired with this premium watercolour paper. Oh, it is watercolour paper. Well, thanks for letting us know. It doesn't actually tell you anywhere that it is watercolour paper. So yeah, at least now we know. See, aren't you glad we read this? This paper also accommodates various other watercolour paint mediums. Well, I'd hope so. Pad glued on one side, made in Germany. So here's a little bit more about Kirsty as well. Her artworks are massive, they're bigger than her. That's very cool. I can imagine that hanging in like an apartment somewhere. So we've got a little interview with her. Oh, this is cool as well. Ooh, I like this one. Oh, it's so fancy. So she's got a video there on creating the featured artwork. A YouTube video, you can click on to that. And also, she's given you some tips. Don't draw from memory. Whilst drawing, look at the object, that's where your focus is. Yeah, I always taught when I was learning to draw things that you should spend more time looking at the subject matter than you should actually drawing, to make sure that you're paying attention and you're not letting your brain fill in the blanks. Obviously, if you draw the same thing repeatedly, you get to know it very well. You'd have to do less of that, but particularly if you are in unknown territory, reference images all the way. So here's some entries for Mythical. This was the dip pen. Oh, look at these. Upcrate 57, our topic is organic robot. Oh my god. This month we are trying to find a smooth transition between technical drawing and organic forms. We want to be as colourful and diverse as possible. Show us lines, squares, circles and your very own organic shapes. There are no limits to your motif. Just like there are no limits to a colourful, diverse future. It tells you what to do if you want to win the big box worth more than €80. Kind of indifferent, honestly. You know, I'm always very truthful about these things. I don't big things up to be something that they're not. I just feel that we have had so many of these types of pens, these water-soluble markers. We've had them in so many different shapes and forms. A primary set of these with some watercolour paper, a black permanent marker and a water brush. Yeah. And the other thing for me specifically, again, this is very subjective, is I always seem to struggle a bit more with the prompts that come from Upcrate. I don't connect well with them a lot of the time, and I'm not feeling particularly inspired by organic robots. Is that what it was? I've forgotten already. Yeah, organic robot. Let's test out the supplies. Let's do it. So I'm going to start with this little permanent marker, just because I want to see what it looks like. Let's zoom in a little bit more again. Ooh, maybe there. So quite a nice tidy line. It's not going to be completely tidy because this paper has a bit of texture on it. But it's doing a grand job. There doesn't seem to be any issues there. It's quite it says it's opaque. We'll see. We'll see how it dries. So okay, so far so good. Oh, off to a good start. And let's take these pens now. Oh, that's quite... I wasn't expecting such a delicate line. Y'all can barely see that. This is quite a light colour. I'm assuming that we can layer these up. That would make sense. Let's just do a little test run down here for that. We'll layer them up. See how opaque they are. They should have a little bit of transparency, and we should be able to layer them up. Obviously, if you put the blue on top of the yellow, you would like to get something that's sort of a greenish colour. Yeah, okay. I really like the size of these fine tips. It's a good size. The chisel nib's chonky. Here is our magenta. Magenta. Okay, so fairly standard. The markers seem to dry fairly quickly, which is good. So let's take the chisel end here. If we're going to mix these colours, I would use a little bit of water normally. I just wanted to see what would happen if we did this. You know. It's not doing a huge amount. Let's be fair. There will be many of you out there who are marker geniuses, and you will be able to do all sorts of fun things with that. I'm just going to stick some water in here. I do keep a jar of clean water beside my desk all the time with the lid on, so it doesn't get any dust or pippy hair in it, or jock hair. I dribbled more water down my leg than I did in the actual water brush there. That's funny. Yeah, this screws the wrong way. That's why they tell you how to screw it and unscrew it. I had to think about that for a second there. First things first, let's test out if this is going to do anything when it's dry. So I'm squeezing here to get the water flow going. Oh, there we go, we're off. Yep, as expected, it's picking up that colour. If you want to work away edges, you're going to have to do a wee bit of work, but they are disappearing. Ideally though, if you're going to use this straight onto the paper, you would stick your marker down and go straight in with your water brush while your ink is still damp at least. But that's it, that's blending out quite nicely. That's acceptable. I like that. Okay. It'll be quite interesting to see what happens here. This way. There we go. So there you go. You can see we're making green. We're making green. Obviously, I would like to think we would do this in a slightly more refined fashion if we were actually painting a picture, but just for demonstration purposes. There seems to be a wee bit of resist on this paper. I think it's just me. But look, there's a nice sort of delicate minty green colour. Isn't that lovely? So in terms of mixing, then your possibilities are endless. The other thing that I just want to demonstrate really quickly, and I'm sure you've seen this before, is if we just grab a wee palette and we use the squeaky squeaky method. Oh, we're not squeaking. That's disappointing. But if you chuck a bit of that in there, I would just stick a drop of water. Again, it depends on what sort of dilutions. I mean, you can play about with the dilutions, obviously. But just one little spot of water in there to get going. And then pick that up with my water brush. And then you're much waterier. And it means that you can start messing about. If I take this, let's take the yellow colour. But if I start sticking that in there, better clean that off, make sure I don't leave anything. Then, you know, you can start messing about with it a bit more. So you're wet and wet there. Paper's not taking that too badly. It's disagreed with the spots where I've dropped it down. You can see that there. That's kind of like marked the paper. It's quite stubborn. So yeah, but the problem with this is, again, if you're using a water brush and you've got more than one colour, you're going to constantly have to clean off the end of your brush to mix your colours so that you don't get too much cross-contamination. So it's just a really awkward setup in terms of actually like using these supplies to mix things, you're better off just using a paintbrush, honestly, rather than a water brush. Because the other thing as well is if you've got it in your wells and you've even diluted it slightly, remember you're going to continue to dilute it because you've got water flow coming out the brush as well. It's quite a delicate balance. This has turned out a really pretty colour, but you see the marks I've left there, and that's where I put the actual marker down. So many reasons why I'm not a fan of this method, and not really a fan of using them in that format. To use them together though and put them over the top and then put some water on them, obviously for me seems a lot more convenient, and you get a lot more convenient results. The other thing I want to do here is just make sure, I'm assuming, yeah, that's dry. We are opaque. We are definitely opaque. That's going down over the top of the on top of the pen, quite the thing. Now my next test is I am going to take this water brush again, and this is our permanent ink. This seems to be happening a lot just now. It is water based, so it stands to reason that we can dilute it out, but that looks dry on the paper to me. And what we have to investigate is how long you have to let it dry before it is actually permanent. So I'm probably going to film the second part of this video, you know, for the Upcrate battle. I'm probably going to film that tomorrow and then obviously join them together. So I think I'll come back and stick my water brush in that tomorrow and see if it is truly permanent. I think that's probably the best idea. I also, unless you're working with something like oils, I think it's really unfair to label something as permanent and waterproof if you have to wait more than 24 hours. I think that's, you know, that's the sort of top end of what anyone's going to want to wait. We all don't have all day to sit about and wait for stuff to dry. A perfectly nice set of supplies, a really pretty colour that we've made here. This kind of reminds me of fruit salad sweets. If any of you are in the UK, you'll know what I'm talking about. I don't even know if you still get them. That's the supplies. I have to say I'm quite underwhelmed, but that's not to say we can't have fun with them. So I am going to sketch out a few ideas later on this evening, and I'm going to come back tomorrow and we will create some sort of organic robot. Okay, so it is the following day, and we can see here, obviously this was what we did earlier, and I want to just see how permanent our black is, and then we're going to get into doing something for the Upcrate battle. So I've just made sure that I've got water flow there, and I am running that across there, and you can see that it is still taking colour off. So to say that this is permanent and waterproof on this particular surface, it is not. It has been well over 24 hours since we did this. So if you're going to use this black as a liner or to fill in areas, I would do any wet stuff first and then do that last. However, in this particular instance, we're going to use this to our advantage. The idea that I've got for the organic robot would require some sort of grey for the robotic parts, so this obviously is what we're going to do, because although we have the primaries, if we want to mix darker variants of the colour, then we're going to need something to darken it down, and that's exactly what we're going to use that for. Obviously, if you want to lighten things up, you would dilute with water and use the white of the paper, so you really do have the full spectrum. So there's going to be a wee bit of colour mixing and colour theory going on here, so I'm going to just okay, so my idea was, some of you may remember quite some time ago, and we talked about this recently in a live stream, that I did a series of robot animals, and there was Mecha Moggy, Mecha Doggy and Mecha Froggy, and I think I would like to kind of follow on that theme, and I've decided to come up with Petal Puss. So Petal Puss will be a more organic variant of Mecha Moggy. So I did a couple of sketches here in my sketchbook. I want to transfer them onto this watercolour paper and get that down first before we get started with these markers. Okay, so ideally for this we want a hard pencil or a very light graphite. So I like to use an F. F stands for fine, and it's halfway between the HB and the H pencils. Obviously that is completely down to preference. So when I was thinking about this, I did kind of look at Mecha Moggy for reference and then realised very quickly there was absolutely no help. So let's just get some basic lines down. So I want to get the size right first, and then I'm going to have this kind of like boxy nose section Keep it quite short though, because one of the things I have noticed when I'm drawing cats is sometimes if I don't get this muzzle part right, it ends up looking a bit like a dog. Obviously I will amend this as I go, I just want to start. It really is important at this stage to take the time and get your drawing right, because if you don't, then it doesn't matter how pretty you make it look, it's still going to look off. Okay, quite happy with the placement now. So to get the sort of organic thing going, what I did was I decided just to split this up into sections. So the tail is an entity in itself, and I want to make that look like a vine, and it's going to have a flower at the end. So I'd have this actually sort of dangling over a little bit. So to obviously, I was thinking about colours as well, and this is going to require a little bit of green. But I would maybe have, you know, something wrapped round. If any of you ever saw my my beanstalk that I did in gouache. Yeah, so we've got that for a tail. We could maybe have some leaves coming off that. And I would like to make this have a wood grain in it. So we'll put some like knot holes and stuff there, you know, like a tree trunk. And we can work on that. Whether I do that with the black pen or not, I'm not sure. We'll figure that out. But that would be a sort of like wood pattern. So the paw part, the main part, would be made of metal and just the ends would be petals. Not very good if you're a cat, obviously, as a predatory animal. Maybe not the most practical thing. But for the purposes of what we need this for, then, you know. And this whole chest area, for those of you that have cats, I know the dogs are the same as well. They can have quite sort of fluffy chest areas. So I was going to make this all leaves. Again, I don't know how much detail I'm going to put in this, you know, for this actual video, but this is one of these ones, and this happened before as well when we designed Mecha Mogi. There was that sort of initial sketch, and it was very rare that ends up being the final edit, but interestingly it did. But when I started Doggy and Froggy, there were a few incarnations before we got to what was the finished sticker. If this turns out well, I'll probably redo it with a proper colour palette rather than just using a limited palette, but we'll see how this goes. And maybe we could have like little green sprigs for some whiskers. Okay, so that's kind of my hybrid idea. Now here comes the interesting part. First things first, always take away any lines that I don't want, because I get confused. I'm easily confused, what can I say? And then really lighten up the sketch as much as possible. We are using very transparent colour, so we don't want, unless it's a stylistic choice, unless it's part of your actual art style, we don't want too much of the graphite showing through. The best way to do this is with a kneaded eraser. This particular one, this is an amalgamation of two, which I bought because they match the outside colour of my sketchbook, which is obviously yellow. Any parts that we're going to do just grey, we're going to do them last, if I'm going to use the actual pen, because I feel like if things like the eye, I might want to use the pen in its neat form. But the first thing that I want to do is mix a little bit of colour. Again, this kind of negates the whole we're using markers thing, and you know, I talked about this earlier. So basically then, in order to create a brown colour, we're going to need to use the pink and the yellow, and also utilise a little bit of the black. Standard cup of tea. Let's squish down some of the black first. And then put a wee bit of water in it just to mobilise it, stop it drying out in the palette. Now, I don't know why this is stuck in my head, and it's something that I learned a long time ago, but to make brown from these primaries, you need twice as much yellow as you do pink. So let's just see how this is going to go. Obviously, this isn't very scientific because we're literally squishing a marker onto a palette. And again, just one drop of water there. Just take that colour off. I'm going to scoop up a little bit of the black. Okay, and there we go. We've got a brown colour. Now, obviously, it's up to you how you want to do it. But what I would do is start with a very light layer. And we can darken it down by continually adding black, you know, to give us darker browns. You will eventually venture into like a grey territory. You have to be quite careful with that, but I'm interested to see how this reacts on the paper, you know, whether we've got time to sort of move stuff about. And then we need to mix a little bit of green. So obviously demonstrated that before, and we got this lovely bright green, which I am not adverse to at all. Okay, that's very turquoisey. Let's try not to touch the rest of the colour. Okay, so let's go with that. So the areas that I want to be green are going to be this chest area. Try and get some of my little leaves in here. And we've got the tail area too. Again, you're better to start lighter and darken down because you've got the ability to do that with the black. Because once it's very dark, it's difficult to go the other way. Right, there we go. I'll do this little area first, and then that'll give it time to dry. So I'm going to take this black now, mix it in with this greenish colour, and that's giving us a much darker colour. Just want to make sure that's completely dry. Yeah, it's not bad. We'll get some sort of more twisted vines. Again, if I was doing this in pencil, I would take a lot more sort of care. Obviously, again, just, you know, this is an unboxing video, so we're sticking with simple. And then we can start to put in these little leaf shapes as well. The thing about this is if you're building up in layers, you can't really spend too long working away because you will lift what's underneath a little bit at least. But that gives us a really good idea that that's like it looks like a hedge. Ah, it's funny. Okay, so for these ball joints, I want to make them yellow. You know, I'm thinking like daisies, but maybe not quite as on the nose, so to speak. Oh, that's actually quite nice. I was going to say it looks a bit blue, but I quite like it. Okay, let's go for that. Back to my grey now. And I feel like his nose should be blue as well. You know, so he's balanced out at either end. Bled out a little bit there. The colours are actually separated a little bit in the bluebell. You can see it's very blue at the tip there. That's quite interesting. And then I would like pink for the petals. I think what I'll do though is I'll dilute out some of the pink. Okay, so I'm going to leave all that to dry for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back in with these markers and start putting some detail in. Okay, we are nice and dry, so we can start working away. I'm just going to kind of work methodically here. I'm going to start up in this top edge, so I'm going to employ the little tip on the marker here. Very gently soften that. I don't want to take those lines away. I just want them to be a little bit less harsh. There we go. Oh, that's cute. Very, very cute. Run out of water. Want to unscrew it the wrong way. Okay, so I'm taking some of the grey now. I just want to get some lines in here. Now you can see I made this muzzle part darker, and that was intentional. And while we've got this grey now as well, I can start to put in a sort of wood texture. Let's have a wee knot there. Maybe have this a bit heavier underneath as well. Okay, moving swiftly on. And I'm leaving the grey that was on my water brush here. It's a shame that these don't dilute out better on the paper. Everything gets kind of a bit wishy-washy. And a bit like it looks as if it's bled rather than it's, you know, actively been made to, you know, look as if it's been blended in. So under normal circumstances I would use a very fine liner to do the details, but again, in the interests of keeping in the spirit of the box, just want to make sure that's completely dry. I did have a bit of a smudge here, so I don't know how this is going to go, but we're going to find out. But the first thing I want to do is put the eye in, and I just feel that I mean, there's a bit of feathering, and I feel it's kind of like ruining things for me a little bit. but there's not really much I can do, honestly. And I'm swithering as to whether I want to outline everything. I suppose I should. Oh my, that didn't go well at all. See, I look as if I've got more of a dog face now. See, because of the little bit of feathering, I've kind of lost the shape of my petals a wee bit. So by outlining it, I'm kind of bringing that back to life. I feel like this is the point where things might go a bit south with this thickness of petting. Because we've got these wee delicate stems coming off here. As I say, I'm not getting too hung up on it because I would definitely redraw this. And this is the thing, people put a lot of pressure on themselves, and you really don't need to when you're doing stuff like this, you know. Normally if I'm doing something that's going to be sticker worthy or shop worthy, I do it over the space of a couple of weeks, not like 48 hours. So I think I'm just going to go for it. We'll just hint at what's going on there. Now we need to get the old lines in here, and we'll just put the little pop rivets in black. I think that's probably the best idea. That there's maybe stuff going on. Again, I think if I was redoing this, I might have little flowers in here, like maybe, let's just pop in some pink dots. Let's give that idea that there's maybe some flowers on the go. Again, I'd probably spend a lot more time on this, but we're kind of having fun and we're getting creative. Now that should have been white down there. Let's just bled over a little bit. I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but we're doing it anyway. Might as well just go for it. Okay, yeah, that's not, it's not great, but it's not too bad. And I think I'm just going to make the stems black. Kind of lost a little bit of that colour there, but still. Okay, and there we have it. Our organic robot, half cat, half rockery. I don't know what that is. Yeah, okay, so probably not the best demonstration you're going to see of using these pens. Again, not really a marker person, and I don't really enjoy this kind of technique. However, we have produced something that fits the prompt, and this is something I'll definitely be working on and exploring with a different medium, most likely pencil. One thing I will do when I explore this further is I want to work on my cat shape faces. Clearly that needs a little bit of work, but I'm really tempted just to go in with a pencil here and you know, just add in some shading. And they do tell you, you know, I'm quite strict when it comes to doing these challenges and only using the supplies that come in the box, but it's kind of like a given now, and it's granted that as standard it's okay to use a graphite pencil, and I love to use a graphite pencil just for shading with a lot of the time. Could probably do with a darker one than I've used here because this is just the F pencil, but that would, you know, that would give an opportunity to really get some depth in and get some shadow areas in as well. So that is it for today, guys. In terms of the box, as you all know, these are kind of not my thing. They're not my wheelhouse, but I've had really good fun, and although it's not supplies that I would use regularly, you can see it's got my creative juices flowing. And for a lot of people that have been getting subscription boxes for a long time, this is what it's all about. We've seen all the supplies before. It's actually more about mobilising what you do know and being able to produce something with this limited set of supplies. So it definitely challenges you, even if it's not your thing. If you're like me, I still highly recommend trying out the prompts. If you've even got a hint of an idea, it's worth just trying them out and putting them on paper just to see what they're going to look like. And I always say the same thing as well, nobody has to see your artwork. Obviously for me, I put this out on the internet, but you don't have to do that. And even if you just want to try it out to see where it takes you, then that, you know, that's kind of the point. So I hope you've enjoyed this today. I want to thank you very much for watching. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Would love to hear your thoughts on the box, and if you've done your organic robot, I would love to hear about that too. You know, I enjoy sitting reading your comments, usually with a cup of tea. And I will see you back in the cave really soon, and I do mean that because we're busy this week, for another video. So have a great day everyone, and bye bye for now.